I'm your host, Annie Bowles, and this is News du Jour. Hey, you guys, happy Friday and welcome back to the News du Jour. So for me, with my third trimester symptoms in full effect at this point, I am crawling across the finish line this week. Honestly, it has been such a challenge getting on new medications for, acid reflux and just being more tired than ever. I didn't even know it was possible to be this tired, and I have more tiredness around the corner. So lots of fun times. Anywho, I will go ahead and jump into the episode. Today's episode will be similar to the way we've been doing them, where I have mostly Ukraine updates for you guys, but then of course we'll have a couple other stories kind of there at the end, mini stories, if you will. So for our first Ukraine story today, NATO will be doubling its forces in Eastern Europe. So NATO has announced they will be doubling their military presence in Eastern Europe, and they actually made this announcement before the NATO meetings formally commenced. The countries that they are going to focus on are Hungary, Bulgaria, Slovakia, and Romania. After the NATO meetings are done, I just wanted to keep you guys posted that there will be a G7 meeting, which is essentially just a group of the world's 7 largest economies. President Zelensky of Ukraine is also set to join these meetings via video call. Biden will then also meet with what's called the European Council, or basically the EU leadership. There's a lot of overlap in these different meetings attendees, but I think that they're just trying to maximize time together during these difficult days. Getting to Europe may be a lot more dangerous in the coming months. Next up, Biden says that Russia should be removed from the G20. So Biden floated the idea of removing Russia from what's called the G20, or a group of the world's 20 largest economies. That means a lot coming from Biden, who has played things pretty safe and close to the chest overall so far in this conflict. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there and how the other countries react to this idea. There are G20 meetings happening in October, I believe, in Bali. So we'll see what happens between now and then. Stay tuned. And next up, Biden is planning a nuclear defense. So there have been enough whispers at this point about Putin potentially using nuclear weapons that Biden has quietly assembled a team of experts to help him plan for that contingency. I think we're all praying that it won't come to that, and nimble diplomacy and wartime leadership could potentially prevent or provoke this. Should it come down to that, though, Biden wants to be prepared with next steps. Biden's group, known as the Tiger Team, is made up of national security officials, and they are discussing possibilities and reactions should chemical weapons be used, or biological weapons be used, or smaller nuclear weapons versus larger nuclear weapons. It's a very, very delicate topic and always has been. They are also game planning for situations like, should Russia invade neighboring countries? How would they respond, and how would they assist with the influx of refugees? Obviously, those refugees would, in large part, be flocking to fellow NATO countries for shelter. And this would effectively involve us, as those NATO countries would certainly seek U.S. support. Okay, I take it back. It's not just third trimester, it's also allergies. I'm realizing I'm having more trouble breathing today because my nose, I can't breathe through my nose because of my freaking allergies. You guys, it's getting crazy over here. I apologize if I'm like mouth breathing into this microphone, but that's where we're at in life right now. So anyway, back to the topic at hand. It's important to remember that the use of nuclear or chemical or biological weapons inside the borders of Ukraine could actually affect all of Europe, as those chemicals and radiation do not tend to stay in one place. You see, they can migrate through what's called radioactive clouds and basically drift after a weapon like that is used. So it could affect as much as like all of Europe. And there certainly could be collateral damage for those around Ukraine who are not even directly involved in the conflict. And next up, prior to popping into those NATO meetings, Biden pledged more funding for Ukraine and that we will also be accepting 100,000 refugees from the war. There right now is not a super clear pathway for these refugees to come in and either be citizens or have visas or what have you. But kind of like with the Afghani refugees, the government will likely work out a path in the coming days. And next up, so Brittney Griner was finally allowed to see a U.S. representative, thank God. So a consular visit was finally granted to basketball star Brittney Griner. They said that they are working to make sure that she's treated fairly throughout this quote-unquote ordeal, which I feel like is like putting it lightly. It's also being noted more as of late that Brittney is an activist in her own right. And this is an important sort of contextual piece that we haven't talked about yet on this podcast, or really like as a country. Brittney was the first openly gay endorsement by Nike. She helped to strike down legislation in Texas that would discriminate against transgender people. And she was wearing a Black Lives for Peace shirt when she was arrested in the airport in Russia. This is the exact type of behavior that Russia cracks down on with its own people. So beyond being an American citizen in a time of extremely high tensions between our two countries, she also represents the type of freedom of thought and activism that the Kremlin is seeking to crush. And next step for today, North Korea is showing off amid an actual war. So North Korea decided that now would be a great time to launch a long-range ballistic missile test. Of course, this leads to everyone guessing at what this might mean. Are they looking to join this fight in some odd way? Or are they just trying to bring attention back to themselves? I mean, who really knows? They shot this missile, though, much higher than past tests, which is important to note. So it seems to almost be hinting that they could hit the United States with it and wanting to make that clear to us. And the truth is, no one really knows exactly what they mean with this little performance, but they're simply adding to global tensions at the moment, and it's frustrating, let's put it that way. And last up for today, something that has nothing to do with the war, remotely or otherwise. Cities saw the slowest growth on record for the U.S. So in 2021, New York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco actually saw major population drops. And this is leading to the biggest drop in urban living on record in the U.S. The pandemic is responsible for a lot of this. People were passing away, but also people were were relocating, to more spacious and more natural settings where their kids could run around, etc., because it wasn't as safe to do that in crowded cities. Skyrocketing housing costs across the country are also making life in cities even more costly than usual, and people just aren't really seeing that cost benefit as much anymore. This starkly contrasts with the past decade or so, where we actually saw people flocking to the cities in droves. Back then, the places declining in population were pretty much all rural, but now we're actually seeing that pattern reversed. Pretty fascinating. And that is the news du jour. Today, I wanted to leave you guys with the quote, "Life consists of moments. Nothing more than that. So if you make the moment matter, it all matters." If you enjoyed this episode, please consider becoming a patron of our podcast. For $7.99 a month, you can unlock tons of perks like breaking news text messages so that you're never out of the loop. Tons of bonus episodes are already up there ready for you to binge, and a discussion board full of networking opportunities and much more. Go to www.patreon.com/sugarfree media today to become a patron. This is the best way to support our show. Our patrons make News du Jour possible. But a couple other ways to support our podcast are rate and review on whatever podcast platform you use to listen, share on your social media, you have influence, tell your friends, family, and colleagues that you love News du Jour and why you listen. You can also follow us on social media under sugarfreemedia.co on Instagram, just sugarfreemedia, all one word, on TikTok, and sugarfree_media on Twitter. We also have a weekend newsletter called Dreamers Digest that's full of dreamy content recommendations for your weekend and a life update from yours truly. Sign up today on our website, www.sugarfreemedia.co. Our music is by Joey Lavoie and Nicholas Foster. Our cover art is by Hannah Pierce Photography. Our Sugar Free Media logo is by Catherine Jezik Designs. Any twinkling or little footsteps you might hear in the background are by my dog, Rhett. He's a rescue pup and always records with me. We appreciate you listening and look forward to telling you about the news again next time on News du Jour. Broadcasting from Oklahoma.